You made the wrong call, you don't know it yet. But somewhere between romanticizing a log cabin and scrolling past a Quonset hut on a trailer, you already locked yourself into a decision that could cost you $5, $10, maybe $15,000 and years of your life. And the worst part? Nobody talks about this honestly. They show you the beauty shots. The golden hour glow on hand-hewn logs. The rugged cool of a steel arch sitting in fresh snow. But they never show you what happens 6 months in. They never show you the rot, the condensation, the heating bill that broke a man's spirit in February, the regret that sits quiet in the chest every single morning. That ends today. I have spent years deep in this world, talking to men who built cabins from scratch with their own hands, men who hauled Quonset huts across frozen roads on flatbed trailers at 4 in the morning, men who made the wrong choice and had to live inside it, literally. And after all of that, I can tell you something no clickbait article will ever say outright. The structure is not the decision. Your life stage is a decision. And most men over 50 get this completely, catastrophically backwards. So stay with me, because in the next few minutes, everything you thought you knew about these two shelters is about to get pressure tested against real numbers, real weather, and real consequences. And by the end, you will know exactly which one belongs in your life, and which one could quietly destroy the next chapter of it. Let's start with the cabin, because the cabin is a dream. And dreams, when they go wrong, go very wrong. The image is powerful. Thick logs stacked floor to ceiling. A wood stove glowing orange in the corner. Snow piling up outside while you sit inside warm, sovereign, untouchable. That image has lived in the mind of every man who ever felt crushed by a city, a mortgage, a 9-to-5 that stole 30 years from him. The cabin is the antidote to all of it. But here is what that image never shows you. What moves, it breathes. It expands in summer and contracts in winter. It warps. It checks. It cracks along the grain in ways that let cold air in and warm air out. And in wet climates, which describes most of the wilderness terrain men actually want to build on, wood rots. Not if, when. A traditional log cabin built without proper drainage, without a vapor barrier, without a correctly designed overhang, begins to deteriorate from the bottom up within 5 to 7 years. The sill logs, those bottom logs sitting closest to ground, absorb moisture like a sponge. By year 8, you are not maintaining a cabin. You are fighting one, chinking that cracks and falls out every season. Logs that need to be sistered or replaced entirely. A roof that must be resealed because even one winter of ice damming has worked water underneath the shingles. Now add the build time. A properly constructed cabin, not a kit, not a prefab, but a real hand-built cabin, takes the average man working weekends and summers between 18 months and 4 years to complete. That is not a number I invented. That is what men actually report when you talk to them honestly about how it went. And during those years, you are burning money on materials, driving hours to a remote site, and living somewhere else entirely, while your dream sits half-finished in the woods. The upfront material cost for a modest 400-square-foot off-grid cabin runs between $22,000 and $45,000, depending on your region, your log source, your foundation choice, and whether you need to hire out any of the skill work. Electrical, plumbing, insulation, roofing, none of that is free even when you do it yourself. Your time has a cost. Your body has a cost. And at 50 plus, both costs are higher than they were at 30. Then there is the permit question. And this is where many men get blindsided. A cabin with a foundation is a permanent structure. In most counties across North America, that triggers a full building permit process. Zoning compliance, setback requirements, septic approval. Sometimes an environmental review if you are near water or wetland. This process can take 6 months in a cooperative county. It can take 2 years in a difficult one. And in some jurisdictions, building without permits on remote land is exactly how men lose that land or face demolition orders on structures they poured their heart into. That is a cabin. Beautiful, rooted, demanding, unforgiving of mistakes. Now let's talk about the Quonset on wheels. And I want you to drop every preconception you have right now. Most men see a Quonset hut and think military surplus. They think cold, ugly, industrial. They think it is a compromise, a backup plan, The thing you settle for when the real dream falls through. That thinking is costing men like you real freedom. A Quonset hut is a semicircular corrugated steel structure. The arch design is one of the strongest geometric forms in engineering. It sheds snow load naturally. It deflects wind rather than fighting it. It has no weak ridge line, no complex roof joints, no valleys where ice can dam and water can pool. The arch handles it all with pure physics. That is not an accident. That design was refined under wartime conditions where failure was not an option. Now, put that structure on a trailer chassis. Suddenly everything changes. A Quonset on wheels is not a compromise. It is a strategy. Here is what that strategy gives you. First, speed. A steel Quonset kit in 16 by 20 foot range can be assembled by 2 men in 4 to 6 days. Not months, not years, days. The panels bolt together. The end walls go up. The door frame drops in. You are weather tight in less than a week. That is not theory. That is what the specs say and what men report on the ground. Second, cost. A comparable Quonset kit, 16 feet wide, 20 feet long, giving you 320 square feet of usable arch space, runs between $8,000 and $14,000, depending on supplier and the insulation package you choose. That is roughly half to a third of the upfront cost of a comparable cabin build. And because the structure goes up in days instead of years, your labor cost, the hidden cost most men never calculate, is a fraction of what the cabin demands. Third, and this is the one that matters most to men at this stage of life, mobility. You do not own the perfect piece of land yet. You think you do. But land decisions made before you have actually lived a region through a full winter, through mud season, through the reality of access roads that turn to rivers in April, those decisions get revised. The man who put his cabin on 40 acres in a valley that floods every spring knows exactly what I mean. The man with the Quonset on wheels drove his structure out in March, repositioned it on higher ground, and slept dry all season. Mobility is not weakness. At 50 plus, with hard-won wisdom and limited time, mobility is intelligence. But let's be honest about where the Quonset on wheels fails, because it does fail in specific, predictable ways that you need to know about before you commit. Condensation is the enemy inside a steel arch metal, is thermally conductive. In cold climates, without correct insulation, the interior steel surface drops below the dew point and moisture condenses on every surface. Your tools rust. Your food storage suffers. Your air quality degrades. Men who do not insulate a Quonset correctly in the first build spend the second winter undoing the first winter's damage. The fix is not complicated, but it is non-negotiable. Closed-cell spray foam applied directly to the interior steel surface creates a vapor barrier and insulating layer simultaneously. A 2-inch application brings your R value to approximately R14. Add a layer of rigid foam board against that, and you approach R22. That is enough for serious cold climate performance. But that insulation adds cost. Typically $3,000 to $5,000 for a competent spray application on a 16 by 20 structure. You must factor that into your budget from day one, not discover in November. Second issue, headroom. The Quonset arch gives you full standing height at center, typically 7 to 8 feet on a 16-foot wide unit. But the usable floor space narrows as the walls curve inward. Furniture placement along the sidewalls becomes an exercise in compromise. A standard bed frame, a full-height cabinet, a workbench, all of these must be configured toward the center of the structure. Some men adapt easily. Others find it claustrophobic after the novelty wears off. You need to walk inside one before you commit, not look at photos. Walk inside one. Third issue, road legality. A Quonset on a trailer is a vehicle as far as most state and provincial transportation departments are concerned. That means it is subject to oversized load regulations if it exceeds 8 feet 6 inches in width. A 16-foot wide Quonset on wheels requires a permitted oversized move. That means lead vehicles, specific travel windows, route pre-approval, and cost. Typically between $500 and $2,000 per move depending on distance and jurisdiction. If you plan to move it frequently, that cost accumulates. If you plan to move it once and set it, it is simply a one-time logistics problem. Now let's put real numbers side by side, because this is where the picture gets brutally clear. A 400 square foot off-grid cabin, built properly with foundation, insulation, basic electrical, and with stove heating system. Conservatively $40,000 in materials and outside labor. Build time 1 to 3 years depending on your skill level and how many weekends you can commit. Annual maintenance in a wet or cold climate. Budget $1,500 to $3,000 per year for caulking, chinking, roofing, and structural inspection. Permit process, 6 months to 2 years. Mobility 0. Once it is built, it is there forever. A 320 square foot Quonset on wheels, fully insulated with spray foam, with stove installed, basic electrical via solar. Conservatively $17,000 to $23,000 all in. Build time 1 to 2 weeks with help. Annual maintenance. Inspect the trailer axles. Touch up any surface rust on the exterior steel. Check your door seal. Budget $300 to $600 per year. Permit process. In most jurisdictions, a structure on a trailer that is not permanently affixed to a foundation is classified as a recreational vehicle or portable structure, bypassing standard building permits entirely. Mobility complete. One structure costs more than twice as much. Takes 50 times longer to build. Requires 2 to 4 times the annual maintenance. Demands a bureaucratic gauntlet before a single log is laid and cannot move an inch once it is done. The other is up in a week, costs half as much, maintains itself cheaply, and goes where you go. So, why do men over 50 still choose the cabin at 3 times the rate of the Quonset? Because of the dream. And the dream is not rational. Here is the honest truth about that dream. The cabin represents permanence, roots, legacy. A man who built a cabin with his own hands built something that will outlast him. That matters deeply to men in the second half of life. The desire to leave something behind. Something real, something you can touch, something your sons can point to and say their father built that, is not vanity. It is human, it is ancient, and it is completely legitimate. But here is what experience reveals about legacy and permanence. A structure you never finish is not a legacy. It is a cautionary tale. A cabin project that consumes your retirement savings, breaks your body during the build, and sits half complete when your health forces you to step back. That is not what you imagined. That happens to men every single year. Strong men, capable men. Men who underestimated the demand of the build and overestimated their available time and energy. The Quonset on wheels, fully built, fully insulated, fully functional. That is a completed thing. You can live in it. You can think in it. You can use it as a base while you figure out the next move. And from that base, some men go on to build the cabin. The Quonset becomes a construction shelter, the tool storage, the place you sleep warm and dry while the cabin goes up without the pressure of a deadline forcing bad decisions. That is not a compromise. That is a two-phase strategy. And it is exactly how the sharpest men in this space approach the problem. Let's talk about heating. Because in a cold climate wilderness setup, heating is not a comfort issue. It is a survival issue. A log cabin with properly chinked walls and a correctly sized with stove reaches thermal stability quickly. The thermal mass of the logs, their ability to absorb heat and release it slowly, gives you a buffer. You stoke the fire hard before bed. The logs release that stored heat through the night. You wake up to a livable temperature, even if the fire has dropped. That thermal mass effect is real, and it is one of the genuine advantages of log construction that no steel structure can replicate passively. The Quonset, with its spray foam insulation, has excellent air tightness but low thermal mass. It heats fast, far faster than a cabin, but it also cools fast when the fire goes out. In extreme cold, minus 20 Fahrenheit and below, you are stoking more frequently in a Quonset than in a comparable cabin. That matters if you sleep alone and nobody is tending the fire at 3 in the morning. The solution most men use successfully is a propane backup, a small wall-mounted direct vent propane heater that kicks on automatically when interior temperature drops below a set point. Combined with the wood stove, you sleep through the night regardless of the outside temperature. Add a quality sleeping bag rated to minus 20 as a final layer, and you have a system that handles genuine Arctic conditions. Total cost for that propane backup heater, tank, and installation, roughly $800 to $1,200, worth every dollar. Now insurance. Most men never think about this until they need it. Insuring a permanent log cabin is straightforward. It is a dwelling. It gets homeowners or a rural property policy, and the premium reflects a replacement value. On a $40,000 remote cabin, expect annual premiums in a range of $800 to $1,500, depending on your carrier, your location, and your access to emergency services. Insuring a Quonset on a trailer is a different conversation. Many standard homeowners carriers will not touch it. You are typically looking at a specialty RV or portable structure policy. These exist. They are not difficult to obtain, but you must seek them out specifically, and premiums vary widely, anywhere from $400 to $1,200 annually for a structure in that value range. The key is disclosure. Tell your broker exactly what it is, a steel arch structure on a registered trailer chassis, and let them find the right product. Never misrepresent it to get a standard policy. That is how claims get denied. So where does this leave you? If you own your land outright, if you confirm the zoning allows permanent structures, if you have the build skills, the time, the physical capacity, and the budget to absorb a multi-year project that will demand more from you than you currently expect, build a cabin. Build it right. Build it once. It will be one of the most meaningful things you ever do with your hands. But if you are still searching for the right land, if you are not certain the location you are considering is where you want to be in 10 years, if your budget is tight and your timeline for having a functioning shelter is measured in weeks rather than years, if your body is telling you that a 2-year physical grind is not something we'll forgive, get the Quonset on wheels. Get it up. Get inside it. Start living the life you came here to live. And make the cabin decision from a position of warmth and clarity instead of cold ground desperation. The men who are living well out here, the ones who are genuinely thriving in the wilderness at 50, at 60, at 65, they share one trait that has nothing to do with which structure they chose. They made a decision. They committed to it fully. They stopped waiting for the perfect conditions that were never going to arrive, and they built something with what they had. That is the real lesson. Not cabin versus Quonset. Not steel versus wood. Not mobile versus rooted. The lesson is this. Time is the only resource you cannot make more of. And every month you spend researching, comparing, second-guessing, and waiting is a month you did not spend living the life you planned. Pick the structure that fits where you actually are right now, not where you hope to be in 5 years. Serve your current reality with honesty, and the future will take care of itself. The man who built something, anything, is already ahead of the man still planning. Get off the fence. Get into the wild. Build your life.